So in the Zohar, written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Vayakhel, portion Vayakhel, chapter 24, verse 331, it says, the purification of Gehenna, which is called hell in English, is a lowly fire that breaks the soul, descended from above to an unrefined fire, broken by punishment. Hashem brings the sun, illuminating the four openings above Gan Eden upon the firmament, reaching and healing the soul. And the quote from Malachi 3:20, but to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in its wings. Verse 333, the lower Gan Eden souls roam every new moon, which is Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month, and Shabbat, the Sabbath, every Saturday, and rise from Friday night till Saturday night, and rise to the place called the Walls of Jerusalem, where some chieftains and chariots guard, as in the quote Yeshayahu 62, verse 6. I've set watchmen upon your walls, O Jerusalem, but don't enter before cleansed. Oh, that's the quote. I've set watchmen upon your walls, O Jerusalem. And the Zohar continues, don't enter before being cleansed. There they bow, rejoice in the light, and return into the garden. Verse 334, they leave and hover, and the bodies of the wicked being punished and roam and watch the sick and the suffering. And those who suffer for the unification of the holy name and go back and tell it to the Mashiach. Yeshayahu 66, verse 24 says, and they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have rebelled against me. For their worms shall not die, neither shall the fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. Verse 335, when they tell Mashiach about Israel's sorrow in Galus, exile, and the wicked ones among them who do not come to know their master, he raises his voice in crying for the wicked among them. Yeshayahu 53, verse 5. But he was shuddered because of our transgressions, heartbroken because of our iniquities, and then they return and that's the end of the quote. But he was shuddered because of our transgressions, heartbroken because of our iniquities. And the Zohar continues, and then they return and remain in their places. In the Garden of Eden, verse 336, in the Garden of Eden there's a temple of the sick, and Mashiach enters, calls upon all Israel's pain, agony, disease, to send them on him, easing Israel and taking them on, bearing what no man can, the punishments of the Torah. Yeshayahu 53, verse 4, he has borne our sicknesses and pains, and carried them, yet we have accounted him as plagued, smitten and oppressed by God. And it says an example is Rabbi Elazar of Earth did this too. Verse 337, the sufferings daily in wait for man, the sufferings daily in wait for man are innumerable. The sufferings daily in wait for man are innumerable, and descended into the world when the Torah was given. When dwelling in the Holy Land, Israel averted the ills and agonies by sacrifices. Now Mashiach removes them from the world until a man passes away, receives punishments. When there's many sins, he's put in Gehenna, in lower sections, receiving heavy punishments because of his soul's pollution. Then more fire is kindled to consume the filth. And the next topic is this quote, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. The candle of God is man's soul, or man. It's Ner, the candle, Hashem Nishmas, soul of man. The candle of God is man's soul, or man's soul is God candle. And I think of this as called Lightwork. In the first reading, I'm thinking, well, where we look, God looks through us. So we're the candle. So God's looking and lighting the candle, and wherever we're looking, we're lighting a candle on the world. It's like our eyes are like these curtains into the world. Second reading, what we look at looks at us. So in other words, the first is where the awareness goes out, it also comes in, right? Because we're looking, but God is able to see. So there's an awareness, being aware of what we're aware of. So what we look at looks at us. Sorry, that was the second one. Right. So the first one is I'm looking, and God's looking through my eyes. The second is that everything I'm looking at is able to look back through my eyes as well. And the third reading is when we light up the presence, the truth. It brings God's into close focus, but dishonesty, laziness, which is really ignorance and unskillful choices, it pushes God away. So the candle of, when we're in our soul, basically when we're in our soul, there's a light for Hashem. We create the candle for Hashem's light. The light of Hashem goes onto our candle. And in terms of God's focus, which is not actually pushing God away, right? So what does that mean, push God away? We don't have the power to push God away. Let's say God wants to be close and we say, no, move, it doesn't work. So there's this really a mercy, because when God is up close, it would be like when you're looking in the mirror very close and you see every little blemish. So we're saying in that moment, it's this figurative that God moves away a little. At those moments, if God would dwell with us as watchfully as ever and honestly, as close up, it would cause a harsh judgment, because we are being unskillful with it, and it's like, in a way, it's kind of like this blessing, like God sort of looks away, like pretends not to see, or sort of doesn't, because with anger, which is displeasure, irritability, it can go to the root, it's grumpiness, right? Of tension, friction, resistance, and could transform and diffuse and clarify the awareness. That brings me to the fourth reading, which is Psalm 36:10, chapter 36, verse 10. In your light we shall see light, which is in God's light we will see light. So through God's ability to not harp on the details of where we might be not exactly in line, and we say this is a blemish or this is not exactly pure or refined. In this way, we could actually we could have this ability to then clarify, to transform, to diffuse. And then Rabbi Ginsburg, this is the third topic. A few things from Rabbi Ginsburg. First of all, he says sometimes the value of the final letters is, because I spoke in the previous video about gematria. I want to share a few more points about it, but this is from the Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg in Israel. So one comment is that I shared that every letter has sort of like this value, but there are some letters where they're also in a final form when they're at the end of a word. And he says how, he wasn't the first to come up with this, but he says, let's say there's the letter 20, which is chaf. There's a version with a dot or without a dot, and then there's a final version. Now, this is an added letter because it's not considered in the 22 letters. So you have tuf. The last letter of the 22 letters is tuf, which is 400, because there's no zero in the alphabet. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 is a letter. It's not 1 and 0 because there's no 0. It's a yud. Then you could do yud aleph, yud beis, 1 this, 1 that. The next time you hit a 0 would be 20. So you have a letter 20. Chaf. The next time is a 30, a 40, a 50, a 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Now you could do 101, 111, 115. You could go through the whole to the next 200, next 300, next 400. Now after that, you could use a few tuf. If you need to write more than one, you could write a few. And then there's a word for elef, which means also 1,000. And you can go on and on. You can also write out how many. You could say, they have mea, which is 100. Like after that, you don't have to actually use the letters to do it. You could actually use words that represent certain amounts in quantity. Now, after 400, what would you do? So he says you could use this last letter, and then you have 5 letters. The 20, which is a chaf, becomes 500. It becomes the next letter after 400. Then you have the shlasman, the final man, which is 600. That's really a 40. And then there's a 50, which is nun. That becomes 700. So we have here 500, 600, 700. We have 800 and 900. 800 is from the letter Pei, which is actually 80, so it kind of matches. And then Tzaddik, which is actually 90, becomes 900. Another thing from Rabbi Ginsburg, he says, when there was this idea that Abraham, whose gematria of his name is 40 and 200 and 2 and 1, so that's 243. And then his nephew Lot, which was 9 and 6 and 30, which is 45. If you add those together, you get 288, which is the same value as when you add dew and rain together, 209 and 40 for matar, which is rain. So Lot Abraham equals matar and tal, which is dew. So there's this idea that Abraham was the first Jew, and his nephew went to Sodom and Gomorrah, of all places, the place where they were selfish, and Abraham was all about hospitality. So we learned that this 288 is the number of sparks of holiness that fell from the shattered worlds of chaos into our reality. And if you think about it, Lot, so just think of this dew, this rain falling, right? Just an itch, sorry. You have Lot, Avram's nephew, which ends up actually being the great ancestor of Moab, the nation of Moab, which actually means from father, because his daughter had sex with him when they thought that there was no one left in the world. 2 daughters had sex with him, and each had a child. His own daughters. So this could all seem so horrific. He moved to Sodom and Gomorrah. An angel came and saved him. Then, his daughters and him, no one else in the family lived. His daughters had sex with him. They got him drunk. They had children with him. They named it, Amon, which is it was from like my it was a shortened version, like it was from my nation, and then Moab, which is from my literally from father, and eventually Moab was Ruth, and Ruth was the ancestress of David, and David is in the lineage of Judah, which is in the lineage of Mashiach. So together they came, and so you get this shattered holiness. It's like these sparks from these dark places. And the last thing I want to share today, which is from also Rabbi Ginsburg, is related to the previous video. We talked about 4 worlds: emanation, formation, creation, and action. So in these 4 worlds, there's this idea of conflict and dilemma, and it's called like kad or something like that, which is kad means the scalp. So you actually, if you think about it, kad, conflict, dilemma, kada. So we have conflict is the first 2 worlds, emanation and formation. Conflicts, so the first conflict in the world of emanation, and there's basically inner conflict associated with emotions resolved by the masculine, and the dilemmas associated with intellect resolved by the feminine. Think about it, when you have inner conflict with your emotions, your intellect could help, so it's a masculine quality. Then you have your dilemma, which is associated with the intellect, then it's resolved by the feminine, which is more like the more fluid or softer part. Or we could say it could be more like the practical or emotional aspects, the more grounded places. So, or not as out there, not as dissociated. So emanation, the conflict is to be or not to be. This is an existential conflict. This one and the third one, emanation. Then we have creation. So creation, oops, my shirt is going up. Creation is a dilemma. So dilemma is like the mother nested on the throne. This is from the Zohar. That's how they call it. This is the morality dilemma. Like what's moral? So this is in the mind, the feminine is connected to that morality. Then number 3, we have, so basically the conflict is resolved by the masculine, its existence. It's like either on or off. And this is like related to war, conquering. If I exist, then you can't exist in my place. I have boundaries because I have a self. And so the third is also masculine. So we had emanation. Then the second was creation, was feminine. It's more like the dilemmas are more abstract. There's the dilemma in creation is like abstract, and that's about morality. And then practically, we're going to get to it in action, the world of action. But first, world of formation, which is a conflict of good versus evil. This is our inclination. So in a conflict, we know it's resolved by the masculine. So this is where we know we have inner discipline. Yes or no? Is this good or bad? We have to know the edge. And this is a masculine. Like we conquer our evil nature, for example. It means we have discipline on ourselves. We could control the urge. And then number 4, the action, the world of action, which is a dilemma for maximum efficiency. This is called pragmatism. This is a practical feminine solution to the dilemma. And that's all for today. Wish you well. Bye.